Majina naitwa Richard Kimosop. Mimi ni secretary ya maji ya Krisoi Water Project. Hii kikundi kile ni 1 year old now. So tulianza tukaketi na wananchi propose mali maji inasapatikana, alafu tukaongea vile tutapata pesa ya kufanya hiyo project. So tukaenda assess mali maji iko. Tukapropeana proposal ya kuchengwa kwa damu.
Water is life, a common saying around the world. Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya guarantees every person the right to clean and safe water in adequate quantities. Baringo is one of the arid counties in Kenya with only 1/3 of its population with access to clean water. The introduction of devolution meant that citizens would have a greater say in shaping their priorities. However, this is not the case in Kabartonjo, the largest town to the north of Baringo County. The lack of water has been an impediment to other sectors of development, but community participation and action in the budget-making process is slowly changing the narrative.
Hatukuwa na maji. Maji ni mbali. We travel more than 3 kilometers to fetch water.
Because water to us is a priority. It's priority number 1. And that's why we have referred to as water maji bay. That everybody needs water. Because in order to get it right in health, you must provide water. In order to actually improve in food security, we must actually provide water.
The International Budget Partnership Kenya and Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance (SEDGE) have collaborated to strengthen citizens' participation in the budgeting process. Prior to this collaboration, poor coordination and engagement of the citizens in the budget cycle resulted in delayed or incomplete projects, leading to frustration among them. The budget champions have taken it upon themselves to hold the county government accountable to deliver on the project set out during the planning and budgeting stages.
The allocation inafika kama imechelewa. Funding inakuja ikiwa kidogo, so haimalizi project kwa wakati. So inachukua muda mrefu ndio project iishe, sababu kama projects ya maji within ni kama kuna one project tu tumeona sasa wamekunya maji vizuri. Ingine inaitwa Kipangere. Iko hapa inaleta maji mpaka hapa kwa shule. So hiyo ndio moja imefikia mahali. Lakini project nyingine ya maji yote hakuna.
The aim of that community was that this bore will be drilled, it would be equipped, and they would drink the water. When the BQs are done, the bill of quantities, you find that 2 million, the amount that they allocated, would only be enough to drill. So there is nothing left for equipping and nothing left for distribution. So there is apathy among the public. When you go for public participation the next year, when you tell them to prioritize, they no longer see the need because they wanted water at that point in time. But because they've not gotten it, they channel the money to other projects. Maybe they want a road or something. So you end up having a borehole that was drilled with the aim of assisting the public. But now because of emerging needs, it is put aside. Then other things, new projects come up, that project remains. But now as a committee, what we usually do in such scenarios is that we face the projects so that we ensure that phase 1, if it's drilling, then you have a phase 2 for equipping, and then phase 3 now distribution.
As a budget champion, we've learned a lot on matters concerning finance, on matters concerning development. Because on finance, we have learned that each and every allocation of finance, it must be budgeted well, it must be evaluated, and must be followed, and ensure that the project has value to the community.
Budget champions are community members who are trained to competently participate in the budget-making process. The champions also sensitize the community members on the importance of public participation and other aspects of the budget process. Their engagement in the process has meant more responsive budgeting by the county governments.
We are seeing community priorities increasingly being addressed by government through the budget. Structure of budget champions and backs-off has come out strongly to give evidence in form of data, in form of reports, in form of their lessons when they are monitoring, data that is pushing government to agree with the propositions they are making. So that has enabled some of their priorities to be captured in the budget. I can say up to 60% of the budget is informed by citizens' priorities that are championed during public participation.
Sisi kama wajumbe, kazi yetu ni kuja tu kupitisha katika bunge yale mapendekezo ambayo wananchi wenyewe wameweza kupendekeza kwa kamiti ya bajeti. Bajeti hii ya Baringo nafikiri tuliweza kunufaika sana, hasa kupitia hii mambo ya public participation.
We want to ensure that we improve the services offered by the assembly, to ensure that the members of county assembly whom we have who are elected and some nominated perform optimally in their role of oversight, in their role of representation, and also in creating legislations that will improve the welfare of the people of Baringo.
To this end, Kabartonjo is edging closer to completing an important water project that will make a difference in the community.
Hiyo nini proposal tulienda through, pipes zimeletwa sasa zimefikisha kwa tank. Na kuna pipes zimeenda zinaelekea shule, kuna along the road naenda mpaka shule inaitwa Kilingot. It's almost 1.5 kilometers from the tank. So saa hii maji ikifika kwa hiyo tank, sababu inafika saa hii maji inawekwa kwa tanki, inatakana iende mpaka kwa hiyo shule, ikipita kwa barabara, alafu community itakuwa inachukua ikiendanga.
The role of the budget champions has been instrumental in fast-tracking gains achieved so far, but more can still be done.
Hii maneno ya budget champions tulienda seminar Kabaret, sponsored na ZGG na IBP. So tulijifunza ndio nasaidia wananchi. List hata sasa wako na furaha, wanasema ni mzuri tuko na watu wanatusaidia.
They trained us on budget making process. So after that, at least now we have information about the budget processes.
We've seen the community grow in this space of the budget process. We don't have to be there as an institution to inform what happens in these spaces. We have individuals at the community who are more of animators of these decisions, of these spaces. They inform public deliberations. And what we have purpose as an institution is that we equip them with information in good time, in terms of what is supposed to be done, when, who is involved. But then we also point them to where they can get budget documents. I must say the budget champions have done justice to this process of the budget. Though we are not there, but the space has really improved.
Even with the improvement in the water sector, efforts now need to turn towards allocation of sufficient resources to ensure water projects are completed on time and improve the lives of the people of Baringo County.
It's Jumia anniversary from the 14th.
All right, and welcome back to Jeff Kanage Live here.
Jina naitwa Richard Kimasop. Mimi ni secretary ya maji ya Krisoi Water Project. Hii kikundi kile ni 1 year old now. So tulianza tukaketi na wananchi, propose mali maji inasapatikana, alafu tukaongea vile tutapata pesa ya kufanya hiyo project. So tukaenda assess mali maji iko, tukapropeana proposal ya kuchengwa kwa damu.
Water is life, a common saying around the world. Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya guarantees every person the right to clean and safe water in adequate quantities. Baringo is one of the arid counties in Kenya with only 1/3 of its population with access to clean water. The introduction of devolution meant that citizens would have a greater say in shaping their priorities. However, this is not the case in Kabartonjo, the largest town to the north of Baringo County. The lack of water has been an impediment to other sectors of development, but community participation and action in the budget-making process is slowly changing the narrative.
Hatukuwa na maji. Maji ni mbali. We travel more than 3 kilometers to fetch water.
Because water to us is a priority. It's priority number one. And that's why we have referred to as water maji bay. That everybody needs water. Because in order to get it right in health, you must provide water. In order to actually improve in food security, we must actually provide water.
The International Budget Partnership Kenya and Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance (SEDG) have collaborated to strengthen citizens' participation in the budgeting process. Prior to this collaboration, poor coordination and engagement of the citizens in the budget cycle resulted in delayed or incomplete projects, leading to frustration among them. The budget champions have taken it upon themselves to hold the county government accountable to deliver on the project set out during the planning and budgeting stages.
The allocation inafika kama imechelewa. Funding inakuja ikiwa kidogo dogo. So haimalizi project kwa wakati. So inavaja inachukua muda mrefu ndio project iishe. Sababu kama projects ya maji within ni kama kuna one project tu tumeona sasa wamekunywa maji vizuri. Ingine inaitwa Kipangere. Iko hapa inaleta maji mpaka hapa kwa shule. So hiyo ndio moja imefikia mahali. Lakini project nyingine ya maji yote hakuna.
The aim of that community was that this bore will be drilled, it will be equipped, and they would drink the water. When the BQs are done, the bill of quantities.
It's a very interesting and exciting day for live. We are having this just one day after the budget statement was read in Parliament, and I know we all have different ideas and different thoughts running through our minds based on the budget statement that was presented by the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Planning yesterday. And this is an opportunity for us to just engage on this particular subject and just hear what thoughts we have. So firstly, I'd just like to go through the agenda of the today. So it will be a 2-hour meeting and have opening remarks from country director and just give a brief here. Then we will have a presentation of the analysis of the national budget. As the budget was not presented for the so it's been the budget estimates and IBP Kenya together with some of partners have been active doing some analysis on specific areas quite critical for this. So we will have a 15-minute presentation on the analysis of what we need to come up with from the analysis. And beyond just this, we've been collaboratively with some of our partner society organizations, most of whom are in this conversation, and would want to just hear from the various sectors: health, water, social protection, gender, and just also we'll just have an opportunity to listen in to those sectors on what does this fund when it comes to water and sanitation and so on, and we'll be able to start. We also have a panel discussion where we'll just have an opportunity to hear different perspectives from different people, from the media, civil society, and also from some county and national government, what this really means for them. And then, which I know most of us will be happy to just seek clarification, asking questions, and an opportunity to just ask questions and seek for clarification of the discussions or some of the issues that will be during the meeting. So, run through of how we conduct, and yes, we believe we shall to keep our time and stick to it. As we begin, I know we all have different and ideas and opinions and thoughts from the budget statement today. So I'd like us to just reflect, and we'll have Kip will just help me in the chat to post a link on Menti. So we want, what are your thoughts? What is really striking? I know we've all been watching the news from yesterday, and we've seen what Kenyans saying, what their thoughts are about the budget that was read. So for now, it will be just like a few minutes to think about, to reflect on what this budget really meant to you, and that would want us to answer. Keep, if you could just present the screen. Asking is, what was striking budget statement read by the Cabinet Secretary for National Planning? So if you look at the chat box and shared, if you could just click onto that link, and then it will you'll find the question on, just you can answer that question on what is striking from the budget statement. Varied issues we could have picked from the statement, but yes, what was really striking for you as you sat and listened to that budget statement by the Cabinet Secretary? So I'll just give us just 2 minutes to be able to give answer thoughts and share our thoughts from the link. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm the only one who's having the challenge that's saying that voting is not yet open on the Menti link.
It's the same challenge.
Okay, sorry.
I also have the same challenge.
Sorry, let me just get to that done.
It's open.
It's open. Thank. Okay, so you could just share your.
It's open from my end. Try to refresh. Has anyone managed to go through? Because I'm still finding a challenge.
Oh, Kip, can you? Okay, I think some are saying that they have a challenge. Okay, so maybe, okay, it seems like we're having some challenges with that, and I'd like to maybe apologies for that. Could you just post in the chat box what thoughts you have in the chat box? So you can share your thoughts in the chat box kindly. Okay, so as we wait for some of you, as we wait for you to just keep having your response, what struck you from the presentation in the chat box, you can just, yeah, thank you. I can see they are starting to come in. And yes, we shall have a time where we'll reflect on this particular, on your thoughts that are coming through from the chat box. But to just welcome Dr. Abraham Rugo, our country manager, to just give us his welcome and opening remarks.
Recording in progress.
Thanks, Abraham. It's interesting you've started recording just when I'm about to start speaking. And thanks. On a light touch. It's such a joy to see the 81 of us joining in this conversation, and it's always a pleasure for us to be able to facilitate these conversations, these engagements. I think my role this morning is really just to say, first of all, karibuni sana. To be able to not just participate as a listener, but also participate in contribution. I think Abraham Ucheng has already mentioned the different perspectives. Why are we doing this? A couple of years back, we found it necessary that with all partners and majority of civil society and private sector actors running to engage at the county level because of devolution, we observed an increasing gap on engagements with budget questions at the national level. And it's for that reason that we muted the National Budget Cafe or National Budget Forum to be able to come and deliberate, to be able to engage. Now, this is a space where we hope increasingly will be a space where government officials, the media, both government officials, both in the legislative and executive arms, and also as well as the judiciary, those working in the media, those working in the private sector, those working in civil society, forms, whether you think community organization, faith-based organization, national NGOs and county NGOs would come together, and even citizens, individual citizens in their own rights and capacity, come together and deliberate and be able to converse with one another. Now, we've done this before. We have done this every time when the national budget is a national budget decision is on the table, and my colleagues will be showing us where we are right now, including 2 weeks ago. If I'm not wrong, when we actually did prepare and present a memorandum, which unfortunately Parliament did not find it necessary to acknowledge, to the budget that then basically is being debated and will be discussed and approved next week. Now, this forum is unique because this is the first forum we are doing of that that is open to the entire public, including followership on YouTube and Facebook pages. The idea is to be able to bring us to speed on what exactly is going on. We do this with a bit of a cloud cover, and in Nairobi it's actually a literal cloud cover. that things are not as good as they should be. As you know very well, that we are not doing very well in terms of just being able to manage our fiscal space. What we call the money available for flexible service delivery is shrinking by day. Critical expenses in agriculture, in healthcare are still donor dependent. So it's becoming a bit of a challenge to be able to tell what next. What next will things look like? Secondly, we are having a situation where we have a budget that is equivalent to a coat of many colors sewed by different tailors, but meant to fit a specific individual. If you listen to the budget yesterday being a budget statement or the budget pronouncements yesterday, it was, I have allocated 20 billion, I have allocated 12 billion, I have allocated 3 billion, I have added 14 billion, I have allocated 60 billion. The question is, all these monies and patches of monies to CDF, to Affirmative Action Fund, to Youth Enterprise and Development Fund, to Women Enterprise Fund, to Credit, are they working towards? What exactly are we trying to achieve as a country with that kind of money? Of course, you know very well that we have a huge debt obligation. The argument that we still are okay because we still can pay is half the argument, because it's a question of we can pay at what cost. And what is the cost of such payment and servicing of debt? Questions around taxation. It is clear that the idea seems to be to squeeze as much tax from those who are remaining. So basically, the cows that have survived the famine are going to be squeezed to produce as much more milk as they can, because when you have the same targets for revenue, if not higher, for revenue collection, and yet you have a smaller workforce is operating, what exactly are you saying? That the few who are left will have to cough more and produce more as it were. That is the context we come in. But secondly, we are on the eve of two monumental conversations. One is the BBI, which we are waiting to hear what the the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court will say. We've seen a substantial allocation to IEBC, and that has got implication in terms of whether this is money for purely preparation of the 2022 elections, or it includes some referendum conversation. It's still not clear to us. But we also eve of a debate on how do we deal with COVID. When shall we vaccinate everybody? When shall we open the economy in its fullness, as it were? But then there's also election 2022 coming, and that has got implications both at the local level but also at the national level, partisan politics and the like. That is the context. But as they say, every cloud has a silver lining, and the silver lining in these friends is that the Kenyans who have the sovereign power still have an opportunity to make a difference, and it is you and I in this forum. And therefore, it's my pleasure to invite all of us as we have the conversations this morning. Let us not hold back. We will try and collate everything that we say today to the extent that is practically possible, but also through the spaces that you have. Do not shy from saying and speaking what you think. We have a sovereign responsibility, and we owe it to ourselves to give the best we can to this country. Thank you so much. I welcome all of us to the conversations. Let's maximize the chat box and everything else. And special recognition to our sign language interpreters. We appreciate the role you play. So thank you, Florida, and everybody else. Over to you back, Abraham.
Thank you, Rugo, for the remarks. And yes, before we go into the analysis of this of the budget that has already been done, so I'd asked you to just share what was striking for you from the budget that was presented yesterday, and just quickly some of the things, and I'll use words that, like, very short words. So some of the things that I'm picking from the chart is that the size of the budget was really striking, and that has come out from quite a number of people just saying the size of the budget is just too big. The budget is big. The other issue that is coming out from is the health budget. So people are trying to compare the treasury allocations versus what was allocated to health, and which one, some of the arguments coming are like really health requires more. And I'm just quoting from what I can read from the chart. So health budget. The other issue is really on vaccines. Specifically, I've seen COVID-19 vaccines coming out quite repetitively, and people asking where is the money for the vaccines, for COVID-19 vaccines. We're in the middle of a pandemic, so these are some of the people are seeing that is striking, that there's probably not enough being allocated towards COVID. And then, yes, as I said, treasury allocations very high. That's one of the other things. The issue around borrowing and deficit is also coming out a number of times. Infrastructure heavy issues around Big Four agenda coming up there. And the interesting ones also, bread is coming up quite a bit, motorbikes. And I think one of the biggest one that I can even see Regina has just posted now, tax going up, it's sickening. So issues around taxing. So those are some of the things that have really come up from the chat box. And I welcome you to just utilize that feature to just keep asking. If you have any questions, we have people who are monitoring to be able to just pick up what is coming out in the chat box. So at this point, I'd like to welcome my colleague, Faithan Kinyanjui, to just through some of the analysis that we've been able to do on the budget. So Faithan, over to you.
Good morning. My name is Faith Ann Kinyanjui, and just to start this, so for a long time, the budget reading process in Kenya, and I say budget reading, keyword being reading, because preparation of the budget actually begins way before the budget, the period that the budget is being read in Parliament has been characterized by a lot of things. And for 15 minutes, try to just have a look at what exactly is happening here with regard to the budget, and what exactly is in this 3 trillion budget. What does it mean? What are some of the highlights from this? And what are the implications going forward? So to start, for the first question, what exactly is happening, where are we at? The decision that there are a couple of decisions that are being made between this period, which is between May 1st and June 30th. So first, it's budget implementation for the current financial year 2020-21 is being finalized. So we are in the last quarter of the implementing the 2020-21 budget estimates. So we are finalizing that in this last 2 months now remaining. The second, we have the 2021-2022 budget. So the National Assembly between May 1st and June 30th is given 2 months to deliberate and on the budget, on the proposed budget estimates, and approve with or without amendments. So by 30th April, the National Treasury should have table the budget estimates in Parliament. So that is the second decision that is happening. And we also have third, related to funding the budget. So raising revenue and the various taxation measures that the government is going to put in place. So we have the whole conversation and discussion around the finance bill, and a lot has been said with regard to that. So you will notice that two stages of the budget are happening concurrently. So we have implementation, which we shouldn't forget, of the current financial year, and also formulation, or rather approval of the 2021-2022 budget estimates. So where exactly are we in submitted the estimates to Parliament, and right now we are approval stage. So Parliament yesterday, the budget was read by the Cabinet Secretary in Parliament, and Parliament now has to approve the budget with or without amendments by 30th June. After which the Cabinet Secretary also tables the appropriation bill. So this is what gives allows us to spend. So when the appropriation bill is tabled and approved, then we can spend whatever has been allocated and to meet all areas. So what has not been appropriated for in law cannot be spent. So then once the appropriation bill has been approved, we also have the Finance Act, which the finance bill, which has to be approved, and also as well as the Financial Act. And all these things have to happen before 30th June, so that before we begin the 2021-22 financial year in July 1st, after which the approved budget should be published and publicized by the National Treasury. That is 21 days after. All right, so we have the budget highlights. A lot has been happening. So we have from the budget that was just read, and also has been a proposed budget estimate that has been tabled in Parliament. We have we look at so we have a look at what is happening with deficit and debt. The finance bill as well, and we also have COVID-19, of course, social protection measures, the effects of the COVID-19 or the socio-economic effects of COVID-19 have also been nearly as far-reaching as the health effects. So that is an issue of concern. We also have the Big Four agenda and UHC. A lot of talking points around that, even from the chat box. And also other things that we need to also keep an eye on. Maybe we are not as we should, but budget ceilings, allocations versus historical performance. So is our proposals in line with how we're spending? In line with how we are spending, we also have issues of equity. So resource distribution, are we equitable in resource distribution? Are we equitable in how we are raising revenues, taxations? And also issues to do with public participation. So for debt, so I think debt, this is something that all of us should be concerned about. And so we are hearing people saying that health is not receiving as much funding as it should, and why that is happening. But we cannot essentially speak about everything else from what is happening with regards to allocations to other expenditure areas without going back to debt and without going back to what exactly that means for other expenditure areas. So in 2021-22, for the budget for 2021-22, we have to pay, we have debt obligations that have to be paid of approximately 1.17 trillion. And debt comes from deficit. So that essentially means that our deficit is also growing, and that means our debt is growing. Sorry about that. And that means also that our debt is also growing. So essentially in 2021-2022, we will be paying 66% of our ordinary revenue to debt obligation. So 66% of the ordinary revenue will be going towards debt. And that should actually concern. That then means what we have to spend, what we have for spending in other areas, such as what goes to counties, what remains for the national government has to be funded with the less than 40% that is remaining. And when we have a look at how our debt service has been growing, it has been rapid over the years. You realize in 2011, 2012, that is almost 10 years back, we were only paying 16.5 of our ordinary revenue to debt service. And right now the projection is at 66%. So the jump from just 16% to 66% should be concerning us, because then that means what we have left for other to fund other basic needs is less than should be. And the implication of that could be that we borrow more, and so you are accumulating debt, and we are also we have ordinary revenue going up, because ordinary revenue has also been underperforming. We to look to manage debt, we're saying that we have to start with managing deficit. So are the deficit projections that we are making realistic? So for instance, is the 1.01 trillion projection excluding grants, is it realistic? Because essentially we see within year the deficit is actually adjusted upward. So then that means we have to borrow more to fund the gap that is the increase in the widening deficit gap. And so we have our budget, we have to fund it, we have the debt side of it, but we also have the tax revenue side of it. So we have the finance bill that the government that allows the government to raise revenue, so to raise essentially tax revenue. And a lot has been said with the finance bill, from increasing tax to basic commodities to what that means for us as Kenyans and to everyone in general. But three things. So one, you realize that the finance does not have the memorandum section. So this is the section that explains why the government is proposing goes to the tax measures that are being proposed, and also how much the government intends to raise from those tax measures. So why this is missing is concerning, but it's something that should be that should be raised. It should be there, because as we're discussing increasing tax on basic commodities, and this has been happening over the last few years. Seeing increasing tax on basic commodities. We are seeing tax, VAT tax on LPG, bread. You're talking about bread and all that. And so justifications, or rather what the government intends to achieve with regard to that would be helpful in would be a helpful addition to the finance bill. So then what you're also asking, we should be asking, is how equitable the proposed tax measures are, because even where tax is uniform across board, such as VAT, how it affects different individuals varies from individual to individual. So that is also one of the things that is important to interrogate. So just to understand that different tax measures, even though uniform, affect different people individually. And an example we give there of the VAT tax, the introduction of VAT tax on commodities, but exemption of tax on transfer of assets. So when you look at when you weigh the two, then the poor will most certainly be affected, but another group of people, the wealthy, are benefiting. So that is also an area of concern with regards to the finance bill. And in this context that we are in, we cannot fail to talk about COVID-19. So that has been one of a subject of discussion in every budget decision that is being discussed, proposals that are being raised, allocations and suggestions that are being made as to how we should have how the budget reflects this. So we realize with regard to COVID-19, the question has been mostly around vaccines, but in the program-based budget, the allocation for COVID-19 is at 9.03 billion, and this only covers staff, testing and screening and equipment. So then what we're asking ourselves is, and most of us where then is the allocation for COVID-19 vaccination? And with regard to that, just yesterday for most of us, the National Treasury mentions that they're allocating 14.3 billion for COVID vaccines and related expenditures. And but when you look at the proposed program-based budget, if you can go to the next slide. When you look at the proposed cover screening, testing, and you have hospital equipment, specialists engaged, so that is staff, and we don't actually see anything for COVID-19 in the proposed program-based budget. But the budget statement makes reference to $1 billion allocated towards COVID-19 vaccination. So then the question is, does this mean that then the budget has been revised? Does this mean somewhere in between the proposals and the COVID-19 vaccination, there were certain revisions that were made? But also when you look just at the 14.3 billion for COVID-19 vaccination, then you see it's a bulk allocation. So we don't necessarily get a picture of what exactly is going to buy vaccines, what is going to other support areas, expenditure, so and all those kind of things, and what are the other related expenditures with regard to COVID-19 vaccination? So what exactly is covering procurement and what is not? And so that is one thing. And social protection. So COVID-19 and social protection is seemingly going hand in hand, since the onset of COVID-19, because we're not just talking about health effects, we are talking about socioeconomic effects as well. And one thing you realize in the budget is we have an allocation towards social protection programs. So for cash transfer programs, including the Hunger Safety Net program, amounts to 29.9 billion. And when you look at the target number of beneficiaries, the number is going up. But then going back to 2020-21, the allocation for the same cash transfer programs, which includes cash transfers to persons with disabilities, the elderly, orphans, and households with orphans and vulnerable children, amounted to 31.1 billion. So then the question that we're asking is, why are the targets, what is the basis for having targets go up, but the allocation is declining? Does this then mean that the amount that is actually being transferred to individuals is being decreased so that they can be able to cover a wider base? Or essentially, what is the basis for this? The other thing with regards to social protection programs that we are seeing is fragmentation of the social protection programs. So you realize we do have social protection, a state department for social protection. That's from just its name, its mandate is in is that there are social protection programs in other state departments, in other MDAs, and including, we have a social protection program in health. We have bursaries that are distributed all across. We have a presidential bursary. We have bursaries in other ministries as well. We have social protection programs under the State Department of ASALs, the planning and ASALs. So then there is a lot going on with regards to social protection, and it's not all these programs complement each other. The intention is good, but how then do we ensure there is no double enrollment? How then do we ensure that a group that is being covered by one particular program or certain individuals that are being covered with one program also not being covered by another, whereas there are other individuals that are missing out on some of these programs? And the Budget and Appropriations Committee in their report actually do mention this as one of the policy recommendations, that these programs need to be such that they are in a certain place and to ensure complementarity and just concurrency in implementation, and also targeting who is being targeted with this program as compared to who are these other individuals being targeted by another program. Another emerging issue, of course, in the budget is the general election. So 2021-22, the budget, you see a significant increase to the budget, to the IBC budget. So a 223% increase, so from 4.8 billion to 14.6 billion. And the election will be happening in 2022-23. So in essence, preparations are happening around this period during the budget financial year 2021-2022. So that is also another significant increase that is happening in the budget. Kip can move to the next slide. And the Big Four agenda. So UHC, the government is trying to reach its goal of fully implementing the Big Four agenda, fully quote unquote. And one of the resolutions that we're seeing in the budget is an allocation of 142 billion towards the Big Four agenda. And for the UHC in particular is we have 47.7 billion being allocated towards the universal health allocation for the Big Four agenda. With regard to the health sector's budget, the UHC is almost 40% of the sector's budget. But then the questions here, the questions that remain here is whether how attainable this is. So how attainable is it? Will it be fund UHC the 47.7 billion for UHC? How attainable will it be to fund the 142.1 billion for the entire bill? Because remember, this is being implemented, this is being done in the context of COVID-19. So in health, the government is not just trying to implement UHC, we also have other challenges with COVID. So this is being done in light of COVID, and we also have debt repayment, like we're seeing. So if 66% of our ordinary revenue will be going towards debt repayment, these are some of the basic services that we should be asking ourselves how they are going to be affected in light of that. And so for the budget, we have prior to approval of the budget, we have the budget policy statement that is tabled and somewhere around February and discussed. And the essence of the budget policy statement is to set ceilings, expenditure ceilings, the entire budget ceiling. So that is the point of the budget statement. So the approved allocations, the final proposed and approved allocations of the budget should then be in line with the approved ceilings in the budget policy statement. But what we are then seeing with regard to this budget is there are some disparities with regard to what was approved in the BPS and what is being in the budget. So for taking deficit, for instance, the deficit in the BPS was 976.1 billion, and the deficit in the budget is 1 trillion, so 1.01 trillion, and that's a huge difference that's a huge deviation from the deficit in the BPS. So this is deficit exclusive of grants. Not deficit inclusive of grants. So this deficit exclusive of grants. And what this means then is either expenditures were increased, which they were. So when you look at the budget summary and just what has been presented, then expenditures in the budget have been revised upward, and also revenue has also been revised upward, but not as having to borrow more. We are having to borrow more, and we are accumulating debt, and the implication that these have in the future is in debt repayment. So paying repayment of these obligations, which then the ripple effect is also felt in the ordinary revenue that is left to fund other spending areas. Another thing that is also of interest to look at is allocations, but from the perspective of historical performance. So to what extent does past spending inform the proposed allocations? So you have taking health, for instance, you have the proposed estimates, the actual expenditure in 2019-20, which is the year that has been fully implemented, which was 108.5. But you also have the proposed estimates is 121.09. So a deviation of 12%. That they should, that spending, that proposed allocation should be according to what they're spending, because we understand that in budget implementation, challenges are beyond just sectors not spending. So there are some certain challenges that result to sectors not spending, ranging from low exchequer issues to in other sectors like the Ministry of Water, contractor challenges in projects. So there are other factors that affect spending. And the question then is, how are these factors addressed? Are these challenges addressed prior to proposing allocations which are actually higher than the actual spending, but also past allocations? In our budget, so one of the things that is just subtly mentioned, even when you look at the budget statement yesterday, so is equity. So equity is mentioned very subtly in our budget. So it's sort of this is what we have, and then but this is what we are doing for equity. So this is our budget, but with regard to have a certain amount that we think would go to addressing equity. So then the question is, whereas it should be that the entire budget should be equitable in nature, so as required. So equity is a prerequisite in budgeting. So for equity to a realization of equity development, just even from our constitution, and also going into our PFM laws. So what you realize in the budget is there are no specific commitments from MDAs on how to advance equity. So we have a law that is being said or rather little that is being said with regard to equity. There is no commitment to how or indication on how whatever it is they're doing, the budget, their budgets are actually addressing inequity and what they are doing for vulnerable groups, marginalized individuals, and how all these complement each other. So this is lacking, also in addition to just transparency on equity and how the budget is responding to this. So there is no information with regard to this. It could be said that what they're doing, how targeting has been done is actually equitable, but where is this information for anyone that wants to interrogate this? So if I want to decide whether the government, the targeting in social protection programs and how equitable they are, then I don't need to this is not something that it should not just be something implied. It should be something that is actually done. It should be a deliberate effort. So considering things like gender equity and also just on development projects and who the intended beneficiaries are. So disaggregated data is imperative here with regard to who the beneficiaries are and how they intend and how it is intended for, and what the program outcomes will affect them. So another aspect that we think should be something that we should look at is on concurrency and concurrency in devolved services and ongoing projects. So essentially, the national government spends 80%. 80% of the country's expenditure is spent by the national government. So 20% spent at the county level by counties, but for most sectors, so you still have significant expenditure happening at the national level. But there is spending that is happening from the national government that is happening in counties. How do these complement each other? So where the national government is implementing programs that are almost similar to those that are being done by counties, how are they complementing each other? Is there concurrency in implementation of this program? So for instance, in drilling boreholes or exploratory boreholes, to what extent should counties be investing in this, whereas the national government is also doing the same? And I think on ongoing projects, it still remains that. So we are hearing there's a lot about there are no new projects that should be brought into the budget. But then when you look at the PBB, there is no disaggregated information on the status of projects. So there is a gap there in the sense that we do not know exactly what is a new project, what is an ongoing project, what is the status of each of these projects that are actually in the PBB. So public participation. And as I began, I spoke about the budget reading and how preparation began way before. So there are certain spaces or stages in the budget cycle where the public should be consulted. It is actually a requirement, but there have been a couple of challenges, maybe a lot. Some people argue with how public participation is conducted at the national government in particular, at the county level, yes, but also at the national government in particular. So the approach that has been taken with regard to participation, especially after COVID, the pandemic struck. So there were these measures around social distancing and just trying to contain the pandemic. But it's 2 years on, and we're still the National Assembly is still conducting participation through email submissions, and there is no concrete public participation that is happening. And we also have, they do mention public participation in the back report. You'll see public participation was conducted in a number of counties, but what happens is the portion of the budget that is actually subjected to public participation at the county level is very insignificant compared to the size of the budget, where in essence participation should be happening with regard to the entire budget, because this is affecting individuals equally, and especially at the county level. So one of the things that we've been discussing also just in these spaces is regard to how people from the county can participate in the national government budget process. So there is a gap in the approach to participation at the national level that might need further addressing, in addition to all the other challenges that encompass public participation. So what's next after this is done? So the budget has been read. The budget has been approved by 30th June. We have a budget. We've begun the 2021-2022 financial year. One thing that we should remember is that budget implementation is a continuing process. So it doesn't end. It doesn't mean that this period, like I mentioned at the start, this period that we are discussing budget approval, it doesn't mean that implementation stopped, because we're still implementing the current financial year. So implementation it is a continuing process, and we should actually want to track budget implementation and be deliberate about it. Two things, because of two things. So we have within year budget changes, supplementary budgets, which we have all heard about, never participated in, but they are passed every now and then. So this is one of the major reasons why it is important for us to track budget implementation, because supplementary budgets are discussing at this particular stage right now when we come in the second quarter of 2021-22, a couple of things may have moved around. So then we need to keep on asking ourselves what is happening, how can we engage and add this and just interrogate the general changes that are being made. The COB in their report, in their recent report, they speak about supplementary budgets by MDAs and why we need, essentially asking the question why we need supplementary budgets, especially in the first quarter of the financial year, which speaks to our budget credibility that is lacking there with regard to the within-year budget changes, but also to track implementation so that we can be able just to deliver in line with approved budgets. Is the government doing what it said it's going to do? So where they've mentioned vaccination, COVID-19 vaccination, is this happening? Were this just pronouncements, or is this keep an eye on it because it does not end here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And eye-opening presentation on just bringing out the issues that we are seeing as from the budget that we were able to pick up from the budget analysis. And yes, we've shared in most of us have asked for the presentation. We've shared it in the chat box, so you can just have take time to understand a bit more. But thank you so much. You can have any questions that can come in through the chat box as we continue with the presentations. But I think that was just a highlight of some of the issues that we have been able to pick out, and we can that there's still a lot that needs to be done when it comes to the budget, particularly engaging with the budget before as during the formulation stage, and even we've been trying to engage with Parliament and the National Assembly in specific areas to highlight some of the issues that Faithan has been able to capture from the presentation that she has made. So we'll have an opportunity to ask questions based on that. But at this point, I mean, that was more of an overall and looking at the overall picture when it comes to the budget. But now I think I'd like to pave way to my colleague Mokera to just take us through and tell us what more did we do and who are some of the people that we've been working with to be able to just put this analysis together. And this will be specific sector-based analysis that we've been able to work with our partners, most of whom are in this meeting. So, Mokera.
Thank you, Abraham, and thank you everyone for joining this meeting. It's so encouraging to see that very many Kenyans are interested in the budget process. I think this is just, it's excellent that you have taken time to care where our taxes are going and how they're being collected and what the national government intends to do. This meeting we have today, which is a public forum, is coming after a process that we have been undertaking since the 1st of April. We have had various partners within the civil society organizations to just look at the budget, the program-based budget, and the documents that accompany the PBB, and sort of look at what issues come out and how can we meaningfully contribute to this discussion. Of course, our target audience is first the National Assembly, but also as citizens, can we come together and articulate our thinking around how public resources should be collected and should be spent. So what we're going to have next is going to be a rapid fire sort of meeting where you hear different analysis on five thematic areas, and we're going to have analysis being presented, yes, by the people we have here, but they are a representation of a bigger voice. We had regional budget cafes. These regional budget cafes were held in 3 regions: the Coast region, the Western Lake region, and the Rift region, where we invited citizens, civil societies, county governments to come and deliberate on the national budget. This has been happening in the month of May, and this culminated in 2 forums where we did joint analysis and a joint memo to the National Assembly, and very many organizations were represented. After this meeting, we will share that memo with everyone. What Faith Han presented will information package on what kinds of things should you consider when you're looking at the national budget process will also be shared. So how we're going to do this, we're 110 here, and we have 5 thematic groups. We anticipate at least each group will have 20 to 21 participants, but it's we're going to try as much as possible to leave that choice to you. So we're going to have presentations on what issues were raised and what we are recommending as civil society organizations to the National Assembly and to citizens, and even at a policy level. So the themes, as you can see on your screen, are on health, environment and water, social protection and gender, which is basically about equity. And then there's a group on debt and revenue, and there's another group on land and housing. Okay, when you get there, you'll hear presentations from the people we have there. Willis Sumba from SEDEC, Isabella Kidede from Taita Taveta, Wilkista Akinyi from Nakuru, Christine Akinyi from TISA here in Nairobi, and then you'll hear from Irene Kineti from Pamoja Trust. After their presentation, to ask them questions and to even share what further comments or further issues you think should be raised around those thematic areas. For now, we're going to allow you to join breakout rooms. As we said, you can choose a breakout room to go to if you have the latest version of Zoom. But if you don't have the latest version of Zoom, do not worry. You can remain in the room, and someone will allocate you to the room that you want. So all you have to do is write in the chat box, I am interested in the land and housing theme. Can I be taken there? And we will have a team that will transfer you to those groups. So when people get to the groups, we'll wait for a minute or 2 so that everyone joins, and then we can start. Thank you so much. And breakout rooms are now open.
What about those of us who are using the laptops? How can we be able to join the breakout rooms?
So from your toolbar where there's the more, the sign written more, you just click on more and then go to breakout rooms, and then you can select the group that you want to join. But if you're unable to join, kindly just drop your desired group in the chat box, and colleagues will be able to get you into the group that you wish to join. Thank you.
Abraham.
Yes.
Nangoja uko kwangu.
Oh,
Unipeleke. Yeah.
Oh, you joined in too. Sorry, I had sent you the password.
Thank
you. Yeah, hi, Abraham. Amazing work. This is Arvind from India. Actually, I'll be joining soon in in Kenya. I'll be coming soon, but then I was interested to see what's going on. Amazing budget compared to what we see in the situation, especially what happened after COVID. I would commend the approach. And what we have seen in India, it's been pathetic. Let me be honest with you. The the things which have been here, it's never been good. The governance has gone bad. You heard about Indian cases, right?
Yeah.
So I should commend you guys. It's well thought budget. I'm very happy to see. But let me know if there are any specific on ICT spend on ICT. I will be very happy to take some cues from there.
Okay, thank you for your compliment and comments. Yes, so far we have not yet done an in-depth analysis on ICT, but we could
Even I'm
just
doing
have a
it. Even I'm
conversation.
doing it on parallel. Let me know if there is something. I'll definitely share. You guys have email ID, something like that, because even I'm doing some research through the partners with KPMG as well as PwC, and I am coming to Kenya maybe in the month of August to take care of. I'm working with Copycat Group.
Okay, so I've dropped my email address in the chat box, and then we can just send me an email and we can pick it up from there.
Sure. Nice. I haven't got it, by the way. I haven't got it.
Yeah.
No, I haven't got it, but...
Oh, sorry, I sent it to... Okay, there.
Yeah, got it. Thanks a lot. I'm really happy to be a part of this, and I will keep in touch with you, Abraham. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
You're looking very sharp.
Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Obstacles to vaccination and COVID prices are deteriorating. Of course, Kenya, as yesterday told us that we tried to contain inflation for a long period of time. So the bullet in red speaking to the global outlook remains highly uncertain, and the risks still remain of pandemic.
I just want to confirm that we all are joining. So yeah, we are currently in the group session. So if you could just go to the desired breakout room. But if you're not able to, just drop it in your desired room in the chat box, and we shall be able to take you to the groups.
Or they are not struggling with finances as where they are coming from, that they need to get their own model and their own approach of how to spend the money or how to manage their finances, and even how to make sure that they are transparent about their sources of money.
Okay.
So that one is not feeling, and you don't tell me, or there is something that you hide away from me, and I'm coming to mistrust you, and I'm having difficulties becoming secure with you, because there are many other things that crop up when there is no transparency regarding monies, and where there is no fairness in terms of distribution of responsibilities of what one is supposed to take care of within the marriage arrangement and the family arrangement.
Okay. Candy, is it okay for you to say, well, you and Duncan are really so much in love, is the perfect guy that you needed and you're ready to settle down with, but venye kuko, enyewe hatuwezi lea watoto na umse, and just decide, by the way, let me just look for someone else?
It's possible. You see, when you meet each other, you hardly see the bad things in this person.
Yeah.
You know, because, as you said, like Pastor Morin said, you're in love, you know. And later on, when you start living with this person, you realize there are things. You see, like we're talking about finances, or maybe this person doesn't open up. I think, for me, I think that that works in a marriage relationship is if you start having open conversations early, and then also let this person be your friend, so that even if he's made a mistake, because those things will happen in a marriage relationship, you're able to tell him, as my friend, I think what you did here was wrong. You know, no feelings involved, but what you did here was wrong as far as finances are concerned. You know, but it's so possible. It's possible to meet someone and say, this is not the person that I met. But having conversations and learning to talk, communicate, and also having this person as your friend, you're able to tackle those difficult situations.
Okay. So, Pastor, then now that we all agree on this aspect about money before relationship, and clearly where there is no clarity, where you and Carol don't agree on how you're going to move forward with money, there's certainly going to be conflict. So what are those questions you should ask during courting before you stand before the pastor and be, unionized?
I think the thing about it is, wisdom is knowing that you don't know. You know, when you know you don't know, that's a good thing. When you think you know, that's where you're in trouble. And I think that's one thing we realize very quickly, because we don't know what you don't know what you don't know. And so the first thing we decided to do when we were dating is we said, okay, let's look for some good dating books. Wacha tusome, tuone what guys are telling us we should know, you know? Because there's such a whole world. Imagine you're 25, 30, you're going to marry someone, you're saying till death do us part. When are you going to die? Probably when you're 90 or whatever.
Okay.
You're committing the rest of your life to this individual. So I think we were like, hey, we better just make sure we are asking the right questions. When you tell me which questions should be asking, there's a whole bunch of questions I should be asking. But the books now helped us begin to understand. Okay, so number one, family of origin. Understand the family of origin. You know, now her family, she was in a business family. People who come from Biashara, I know that Duncan has said that he's a businessman. Business people have that tendency of, they work hard, they get money, then they enjoy the money. Now that's her family. So pesa ikuzoea, you know, to me ikuzoea. So you enjoy, when it comes, you enjoy it. Now for me, I grew up civil servant family. Civil servant family, pesa inakuja kidogo kidogo kidogo.
Mshahara mwisho wa mwezi.
Mwisho wa mwezi. So it never comes a lot, eh? So you never have a lot.
Okay.
Now imagine now when you get married, the minute we have some money in the bank, she's already thinking, what plan can we have? You know, we want to be happy. Me, I'm thinking, wow, we could be broke if we eat this. So already you can see that's going to be a problem. So begin to understand your origin. Where does she come from? Then begin to understand your backgrounds in terms of your temperament. Because all of us have temperament. Some of us are very easy. We enjoy life. We're the life of the party. Some of us, we like things under tight control. And the funny thing is, opposites attract. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes.
You will never attract somebody who's like you. You'll always attract the opposite. And we always say opposites attract until they attack. Because what happens is eventually you'll get to realize this thing that attracted me to the person is the thing that drives me crazy about this person. So begin to understand your temperaments and why you're so different. Because those things now help you later. When you start to see the guy doing something, you don't think he's the devil. You realize it's just that's his temperament. And what are the weaknesses of that temperament? And he also understands that, so he asks for help. I love what Kendi said. When you become friends, you're actually able to ask, because I mean, me, I have weaknesses, and she knows. So I don't have to hide because we've already discussed those weaknesses. So when it comes to money, she's able to tell me, my temperament is a controlling temperament. So I like to be in charge of things, you know. So she's able to tell me, you know what, here, you're being too much in control. You're going to make our kids grow up miserable. They need her, because her temperament is a lot more relaxed. So she's able to say, you know, you need me because our home, if we leave it to you, our home will be a military camp.
Okay.
So I think when you work together as a team, you begin to understand those are her strengths, these are my strengths. I'm not threatened by her strengths. We stop competing. Too many couples compete. You know, it's like you're fighting to show that your way is better. But when we understand that our ways are different, I'm able to see what do I like, what do we like in your family? Let's adopt it for our family. What do we like in mine? Let's adopt. Rather than saying, no, this is how marriage is meant to be run. So I think some of those things become very important for couples to be talking about. In-laws, you know, maybe you're marrying a guy who, whenever his mom speaks, he even stands up when he's talking on the phone. You need to be asking yourself, is that a good thing?
Yeah.
You know, and what causes that?
And I like
will you be talking with him and then the mom calls and he runs off and leaves you? So these are things that people when they're dating, they don't think about, but eventually they'll become major sore issues. So it's not that you won't marry him, but at least by understanding the issue, you're able to address it before it becomes a concern.
Okay. All right. So, Prof, now that we have all agreed on perhaps the few things that you should do before, you know, you get married, and let's say we have done some of the basic things, and now we are married, and we are now living together, and all this part of the reality that Carol was talking about kicks in. What are these things that drive people apart immediately after they get married? Because when we were dating, we didn't see them. But now we live under the same roof and we realize, oh, this is how it is.
Yeah. You know, like when we are talking about during courting and dating and courtship and the things that people are taken through, that is more theoretical. But then when we are saying that reality kicks in, it is when now the practicals start happening at a personal level. And then you start realizing we are not in the honeymoon. We are in the real act of doing the marriage together. And some of the things that make marriages come to a deadlock or even break up, the separations and the divorces, is when one feels you're not transparent. Where did you get the money I saw in your bag?
Okay.
I can't understand the reason as to why you have to, you don't want us to talk about money. So not talking about it, not communicating about it. And at the same time, we have seen families, like when we receive families for counseling in our offices, and this couple, a wife is saying, I have been beaten because of money. Because for him, he's like a distributor. When he has his money, he distributes to the different places where he wants the money to go. But for me, I am a retailer. I would want to hold, I would want to keep, I don't want to spend a lot. That's my approach. That's what I believe works for me. And so when he comes and beats me or insults me or demands of me that I sell a piece of rad that daddy gave me, I don't understand, and this is not something that I'm going to bear. when a person does not want to take up responsibilities, her money or his money is for enjoying, but his money is the one that we need to use here.
Okay.
Those kind of concepts don't make sense to people, and they hurt and they pain, and they feel this is not the kind of a relationship or even experience that I had budgeted for.
Okay, and you raise a very valid point about the issue of transparency, which is a huge thing. Let me just start with Duncan. That transparency issue comes especially when we start talking about how we should share responsibilities. Maybe from where you sit, do you guys share responsibilities? Does one partner maybe shoulder a bit more of the responsibilities?
Well, we are very interesting. I think we share responsibility. One of the things we did very early on is we realized we are a team. So we sort of have a philosophy like we hunt as a pack, and we share pretty much responsibility. As I said earlier, as a businessman, sometimes I do work and payment delays. Because she is my friend, I can actually reach out to her and say, hey, these are because this is how my monies will come in. This is how, monies will come in.
Okay.
And these are usually our bills. So would you please,
okay,
chip in, work on this? And one of the things we do is on major, we have predictable bills. So things like house bills, food and all that. That one I've said, hey, Linda, can you sort out this as I focus on global issues? Like, where are we going to have our inheritance for our children?
Okay.
But yes, the short answer is yes, we do. We share responsibility.
Okay, but from the way you speak, you sound like you shoulder part of the major and bigger responsibilities.
It just depends with how we look at it. But one, of course, from the culture I come from, Jesus has saved me, but I still have, the man responsibility. Show the world that you're protecting your family kind of approach.
Yeah.
But I have not shied away from reaching out and asking for help when I'm down.
Okay.
So yes and no, depending on how you look at it.
Maybe before even we answer that question, we should ask Pastor, do we have a situation where one partner should provide for more, or should we provide all of us equally? You guys are looking.
Well,
I love it.
We've had situations. Maybe you can talk about
Yeah,
that.
we've had situations. So for us, I think our model is one of partnership. And what we do is that we look at the strengths. First of all, we say that whatever we have goes into a common pot. We believe that whatever anyone is bringing in, it's actually God who has provided for us. And so we look at it from that perspective. It's not his money or my money. We look at it at that perspective. And one of the advantages of that is that, I remember there are times when I've been working and he's not. And there are times when he's been working and I've not. And the beauty, or at least what we have seen working, is that when you have that, I'm the one who is doing this, I'm the one who's earning more, or these are my responsibilities, then it's very easy to have power plays. The person who is earning more then has more power in that relationship. So for us, that's why we said, whatever we're bringing in is for us. And so when it comes to when it comes to one pot, then really it is who is the one responsible to pay, to do the bills. It could be me or it could be him. And there we go by strengths. I'm not there. For me, I'm not as organized as he is. Yeah. But because he had that controlling nature, and I kept feeling that he's controlling, then he gave over the control or the reign of managing money to me.
Okay.
And again, that's just because of our couple dynamics. So we look and we say, okay, who's the entrepreneur, who's the visionary, and who's the person who is able to manage? He's the visionary. I happen to manage. As a visionary, he's able to start so many projects, but without a good system of running them, then none of them can succeed. So we look at it as a partnership.
And that ties in a way with the question that we asked guys this morning, that if they are married, who manages the finances will be something part of that feedback in a short while. Yes, that was the question. Are you married, and who manages the finances? Sakida Jepke Moy says, Yes, income is very important when choosing a partner. I think that was in regards to our question earlier on whether you should actually use what someone earns as a factor when choosing a partner. Frederick says, divide the bills and let everyone manage their own finances. Time has changed. Thank you, Frederick. Julius Otieno Oko says, let's face it, the marriage institution is failing because we don't respect family institutions. If we don't emphasize on the divine sanctity of family institution, marriage will fail. That is Julius Otieno Oko. First of all, just before I go back to Prof, do you want to add to what Carol was saying?
Yes, I think. Well, you know, when the gentleman who shared and said people should just divide money, divide responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, marriage is supposed to be oneness. And when you build a house with two different foundations right from the start, that house will fall. It will fall. And so I think one of the things that you need to be working on is how do we become one? If I can trust you with my body, and I cannot trust you with my wallet, there is a problem.
A very big
problem, you know? And so it means right from the selection point, I was not careful in how I selected. So we have to work towards building our trust for one another. And I think one of the things that she was saying, you know, when there are times when I was a jogo, you know, I'm the one providing. I'm also like Dankam, I'm from the culture where I want the man to be the one. But there are times when, I remember a time in our lives when for 2 years, I wasn't working. I didn't have a job, and I was just hustling and helping. She had a steady, regular job. But because right from the onset we had decided our money goes into a pot, and then actually what we do is we pay the bills from that pot and we give each other allowances.
Okay.
So we on a requisition, how much is your allowance should be.
Yeah.
Now hers is always higher than mine because as you can see our hairstyles have different cost implications.
Okay.
Typically it's about
And I actually have a lot of follow-up questions to that, but let me just pick this call. I think a caller from Bungoma. If you can hear me, good morning and welcome to the show, Alfred. Do you have a question or a comment?
Good morning. My name is Alfred Mukenya. I'm calling you from Bungoma, right from the neighborhood of Duncan and Linda.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Thank you so much. I would like to maybe ask a question. What advice would this couple give to this young generation, let's say a young man who is not yet is planning to go into marriage, and in this financial bit, what qualities they are going to look for in a woman, in a partner, and how they should handle these finances, the financial issue, how they are going on. Do they just go into this with the fact that they're the main provider as our fathers and mothers trained us, or have times changed? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Alfred. That is Alfred from Goma. Maybe, Prof, do you want to respond to that question? Because I know you directed it to the couples, but let me just start with you.
Yeah, just ask it so that I can get it with clarity.
He said the advice that we have for couples going into marriage, should there be one person who is a major provider, or should we sort of share responsibility?
Right. When it comes to reality is that one person can be having more income at one point, and at another point, she or he does not have as much income. And therefore, it's about looking at how to deal with the finances on a continuous basis, because there are also emerging issues. A child gets sick, or maybe school fees is going to be required, and therefore more needs are coming that need to be taken care of. And therefore the two should be very frugal, and they should also communicate regarding what needs to be handled, what are our regular bills, our regular spending, and what are the emerging issues that we are dealing with. So we would want to say that it's important to bring things on the table and talk about them and be realistic about them.
Yeah.
When we talk about the man as the major provider, that, like in our therapy rooms, we pick a lot of hurt and pain that comes from those cultural orientations and cultural beliefs, because if this man is not the one who is having income at some particular times, does that mean that now he's not important in this family? How is he going to be regarded? And how does he regard himself? The burden of the man being the one who is a sole provider is something that we need to delete completely in the 21st century moving forward, and know that the two, man and wife, come together in the modern world to make sure that we are going to be fair in how we divide the responsibilities of meeting the needs that are there, financial, in the family.
Okay.
So I would want to say that it takes a lot of being friends and talking through and being realistic and being fair to your partner, so that we can move things forward, financially speaking, without also allowing money to manage us, but as a couple, that you are the ones to manage the finances and the money. Money cannot be bigger than you. You have to be bigger than the monies and resources and finances that you have.
Wonderful. Do you guys want to respond briefly?
Yeah, I think for me also, I love what Prof is saying. And I just also love what Duncan and Kendi are saying. I mean, I think you have some really good panelists today. Proverbs 18:22 says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from God." I think what people don't understand is when you become a team. I love what Duncan said, that we're at park, we hunt together. People mistake that. They think that I want to hide money from the woman. That's what I've been taught by my culture. I don't want to tell her what I earn in case she takes advantage. You know, we don't understand that when you actually are a team, there's a third element that comes in. I believe the Creator is blessed because marriage is his idea. And there's a favor that comes to a couple that choose to work together. And it's not just a favor of you won't get broke. Actually, I think you can create great wealth. So we run a course called Couples and Money. It's an online course. And we teach couples about this. And I remember, I'll give you one quick story. There's a couple who came on. The guy runs a fantastic farm, very successful. He's a great guy. His wife was at home looking after the kids, and she had done that. Now she was doing her own thing. He's very happy to provide for her. Class 1. The guy realized this is the best partner God gave you, and there's a reason why God gave you this partner. So he began to ask her, why don't you work in the farm? She used to sign, she was a signatory actually. At least he was at that level where he would allow her to be the signatory of the business. And he asked her, what do you think of the business? And the woman gave him some ideas. The guy said, you've been sitting with all these ideas all this time watching me suffering. And he put for her an office immediately. That same week, he put for her an office in his company. Let me tell you, in about 4 weeks, their company had taken a trajectory. And he came and confessed to us and said, I would never have been able to afford the help I'm getting from this woman. Because her level of education, her level of passion and ownership of this business is at the next level. And no anybody else I hire
As it happens in all breakout rooms in Zoom, we are just thrown back in here. But I hope you got a chance to listen. You got a chance to listen and maybe walk around, because you had that opportunity to walk around and hear what people are discussing in different groups. I wish we had time to sort of bring together everything that you had, but please write in the chat box what stood out for you, how we can continue to push for better budgets in every thematic area that we have here. Sorry, Gitwanja, we are not taking back anyone anywhere. We are all back into the main room, okay? We are all back into the main room. We are very sorry. We never have enough time for these kinds of discussions, but thank you for attending the World Cafe. Over to you, Abraham.
Thank you so much, Mokeira, for facilitating that session. And I mean, the group I joined, at least the discussions were good, and people have questions. And I know, as Mokeira says, time is never enough. And so I'll just quickly move on to the next session, where we just want to have some questions to specific people. So I'd like to quickly just hand over to my colleague, John Kinobia, to take us through the next very brief session. John?
Thank you very much, Abraham. And I will try and keep it short, because we want that before we end this meeting, we can get to have an opportunity for those of us who would like to contribute to everything that we've had today, to at least have an opportunity to do. What I'm going to do is bring a couple of colleagues who are on this call, who work in certain spaces that are unique, but also play a big role in terms of our engagement with the national government budget. And here I have Victor Amadala, who is a journalist, works for the Star under the Radio Africa group. The media plays a big role in public education, whichever way we look at it. The media probably reaches more citizens every day than any other agency. So, his own experience covering budgets and what how that can change, how that can be improved, will be really nice to hear too. As Mokeira said, one of the things that we are trying to do at the International Budget Partnership is also to try and create more energy within county-level organizations to engage with the national budget. Definitely all of us have paid a lot of attention to the county budgets, but the national budget still holds sizable resources, and a number of decisions that are made at the national level affect service delivery director at the counties. So we'll pull in Francis Namuju, who is the Director for Community Empowerment and Development Center in Busia County, just to also share his experience as a county-based organization, trying and making efforts to bring the community within Busia to engage with the national budget. But interestingly enough, as well, is we want to hear from county governments. County governments also have an opportunity to engage with the national budget. And I think it would be nice to hear what their experiences, their expectations might be. And so we have Emmanuel Luvai, who is a county health management, who is in the county health management team in Busia County. And the selection of health here is very specific, because health is the most significantly devolved service. But at the same time, when you listen to the big four, health is also one of the sectors that is targeted at that. So quite a number of heavy decisions being made at the national level on health, but counties in charge of implementation of a big chunk of our health services. So that will be three individuals that I'll pull in. I will ask you to speak, to a couple of questions, but try and keep them short. So I'm going to start with Victor. And Victor, please give me a heads up if you can hear me. Sorry, on Zoom, and like in hotels where you call people to a high table, on Zoom, you literally have to look for people. Victor, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thanks very much, Victor, for joining us today. Now, the media, as I said, has a big platform in terms of educating the public when it comes to budgets, and covering everything that is said about the budgets, everything that is said about where revenue will come from and debt, and everything in between. What has been your experience, covering budgets and trying to write, stories that can get the public to understand what is coming from government? And how do you think, that can be made much better?
Oh, thank you very much. This is a great opportunity because yesterday I was writing the same story on the budget, and I was asking myself, what should I tell Kenyans who are going to read this paper tomorrow about what Ukuri Yatani has just said? And I looked at it because there's this jargons about fiscal. When you talk about fiscal policy, Mama Mboga doesn't really know about what fiscal policy is all about. So my experience for the past 6 or so years writing about budget, we've been always looking traditionally at taxation. Like yesterday, I was really keen to hear some of the tax measures that the Treasury was coming up with to maybe ease the cost of living for the mwananchi who is reeling from the economic pressures of COVID-19. But again, for the past 2 years, our shift has gone. For the past 2 years, we've shifted to scrutinize the debt and critique the bloated budget that is issued every year, that we really don't know where the finances or revenue for it coming. So it has been really mixed opinion, for instance, because I'm a Kenyan before being a journalist, and writing such stories, especially on budget, sometimes are a bit emotional, because you look at it and you are looking for something that is really going to touch on your grandmother, your neighbor, your mother, but sometimes it is really hidden. And how I wish that the budget should be read after passage of the finance bill, because that is where the devil is. For instance, looking at some of the proposal, the Treasury is proposing that it scrap the Parliament's role in reviewing the VAT. So the the Treasury want to be imposing VAT measures without going through the Parliament. I looked at it and I thought that this is where the devil is, because it is the opportunity for Treasury maybe to come and increase things like the VAT on fuel, which would really have a spiral effect on every commodity that Mwananchi is using. So I think for me yesterday, or rather the past several years, my concern has been on the rising public debt. But this year, I was really focused on the proposed finance bill, which will come into effect July 1.
Sorry, Victor, just to push you a little bit.
Yes.
Especially when you say you want to write human stories, people highlight their plight.
Yes.
This call is full of people who work for civil society organizations.
Mm-hmm.
What can they do to make your life easy in covering those stories?
Okay. They are really, let me start by appreciating them. For instance, they are really assisting us. Yesterday, I made a call to Wanjiru Gikonyo of TISA, and she gave me an op-ed that ran with my story today. It is a lead story in the Star newspaper today. So they are really coming in. The Okoa Uchumi campaign, we always, in the past we've been calling economists to help us analyze the budget. but they are too technical and lot of jargon. But the civil society is now coming in with looking at common mwananchi, the fighting for common mwananchi. So getting their views and comments and incorporating them in the stories that we are writing really pushes the government to the, or rather help us in pushing some of the agenda we want. But as you understand, as a journalist, I may be really willing to write something that is really touching on Mwananchi. But at the end of the day, that paper is not mine. That TV is not mine. This media is owned by some of these people who are actually, for the lack of a better word, pressing Mwananchi. So the media we are invited in this forum so that we tell them we are not going to push the agenda of media owners. We want to push the agenda that really focusing on Mwananchi. So as a journalist, and many others I know, will continue in our space, try to push agendas that are really touching on Mwananchi. But unfortunately, most of these media houses are owned by the, there's something that I usually refer to, is this a state capture? Maybe we can call it a media capture, where those who are really pressing Mwananchi, the leadership of the country, owns the media house. So when you're writing something that is critiquing the whatever the proposals Treasury is coming up with, somebody somewhere is looking at that story and is like, who are you writing for?
Thanks, Victor.
That is my...
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Victor. And that last part, I think, is one that many people, I'm sure, will have a lot to say. I also need to just confirm where colleagues from the Parliamentary Budget Office were to join the call. I just want to check whether they have. Do we have colleagues from the Parliamentary Budget Office? Okay. As we check, maybe I can pull in now Francis. Francis, I want to pick up from a point that Mokeira spoke to, which is the importance of having more county-based voices, so that the national budget does not seem to be a Nairobi-based budget. And it will be nice to hear from you what your experience has been this year, trying to build that voice from the county level to be able to interact with the national budget. What has your experience been, and what do you think are the opportunities and the challenges therein?
Thank you, John, and all gentlemen and ladies who are on the call. Just to go through, my name is Namuju Francis. I work for SEDEC Community Empowerment and Development Center based in Busia. Just to go right to your question, initially, public participation has been tokenism. Then there was what we noted that is little attention since inception of devolution. Little attention has been given to national budget processes, with a bigger focus on county processes. So what is changing currently in the region, for instance, the Lake region that we coordinate, is that pulling our budget facilitators to come to understand that there is still a wide budget that we need, a wide space that we need to put our voices together, so that the national government or processes can also be given opportunity for citizens to be able to understand these allocations at the national government. How are they impacting to us as a region or to specific counties? And what is our role in terms of ensuring that citizens appreciate and own the projects that are being implemented in our counties? Secondly, what is coming out is that we still have those capacity gaps in terms of unpacking the national budget and bringing in a number of actors to participate in these processes. And what we are also learning is that our national leaders, especially the MPs, are not involving citizens in these processes. So I feel that coming as a region, it will give us more voice in terms of bringing our leadership to make them understand that this budget process is indeed supposed to come up to the lower level, so that the priorities that are given or considered at the national budget is actually priorities that is impacting directly to citizens. We want to see the value of investment in this kind of approach, so that the value for resource or investments in our counties, both national and county level, is actually addressing the priorities and needs of the communities. So our experience is giving us that, or is showing that capacity gaps that is in our communities, in our beneficiaries, is actually still an issue that needs to be addressed, where civil society organizations in the region needed to put more efforts, for instance, in analyzing the budget and for coming up with the simplified information packages that will help our communities and stakeholders to hold the national budget discussions and hold our MPs, governors, and the senators to task to give us value for our resources. Then we will be able to see that there is a value of investment and for investment in our region. For instance, Raila the other time was saying that the investment in Nyanza is to benefit the entire country, rather than just looking at is a low Nyanza region development agenda. So we also need to see that when specific projects are being implemented across our regions, is actually for the benefit of the entire region and Kenya as a whole, because when it comes to revenue collections, all these investments is actually a target for revenue collections. And it has a significant impact to the region at large and Kenya as a whole in terms of employment opportunities and then provision of services that the region requires or the country Kenya requires. So my bottom line here is that there is still need for capacity enhancement. There is need to amplify our voices by coming together so that we are reading the same script, so that we are able to engage different actors, both national and county government. And I also call upon the media to have objective reporting, and where necessary, their capacity also to be built in terms of budget languages and budget work, so that when it's coming to reporting, whether on radio or newspapers, there is that mwananchi, that Mamamboga is able to understand in simple terms what is being shared in the budget statement, and then how can they be able to track budget implementation, so that they are able to appreciate that the investments that the government has prioritized is actually giving that quality service that we require.
Thank you very much, Francis. And I think all of us can appreciate that we have still quite some work to do in terms of making sure that there are more voices coming to discuss budgets, but at the same time pushing those who are responsible to making sure that the platforms are there, they are effective, that they are playing their role. And then lastly, I want to pull in Mr. Emmanuel Luvai. And my question for you is very direct on whether county governments see themselves as part and parcel of engaging with the national government on its budget. And if so, what opportunities the county governments are able to put together that can make sure that some of the challenges that Francis is speaking to, the citizens in the counties to be able to also engage with the national government with the support of county governments. So question is, do you see yourselves as part and parcel of engaging with the national government, or do counties say that's also there's some independence there, so we don't touch that? Mr. Luvai, over to you.
Thank you, John. And thank you, my co-panelists. Thank you for the opportunity to share into this great discussion. Sorry, my network may not be very stable, but I hope I can be heard very well. Once again, my name is Emmanuel Luvai, working for the Department of Health in Busia County. My specific role entails coordinating what we know as community health services in this country, and in particular now in Busia, I am stationed. Your question, John, is very pertinent, very important, especially at this time when both national and county governments are busy undertaking the budget process. And so far we've heard from the national what they've planned to do over the next 1 year. And I was particularly concerned with the 120 billion that the Ministry of Health intends to spend.
Bwana Luvai, if I can stop you just a bit, I see some colleagues cannot hear you very well. If you can add your voice just a little bit.
Sorry, I'm outside the office and probably there's a little bit of interference here and there, but I hope I can be heard now.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yes, so I was just saying the budgeting process concerns us, even when we work at the county the way we are, and we are privy to the goings on at the national level. And of course, despite the fact that county governments are undertaking a devolved health function, we are still concerned about the need for additional resources from any quarters. Even if we are allowed to tap into the 120 billion, that will go a long way in helping us to improve and work on this important mandate that Kenyans gave unto us. I just want to give a historical background that Busia County did a costing of health services here, which we came to around a figure of around 7 billion that is required annually to run health services in Busia County. The county government only allocates close to 2 billion shillings. This is way below even half of what is required. Our partners, and we want to thank partners for this, do another input of around 3 billion shillings. This comes to around 5 billion shillings. We are still way short below of the 7 billion shillings required to run the entire functions of the Department of Health in Busia County. So we are really deeply concerned, and we want an opportunity also to be informed. This 120 billion allocated to Ministry of Health, how does it affect we at the devolved unit? Does the Ministry of Health at Afi House still have devolved functions such as we do have here? What exactly does this money entail, and what budget items does this money fund? Well, is it part of what the devolved systems are also doing? Can we really say this is a duplication of functions, or is just another way of camouflaging things and defrauding Kenyans? We are really deeply concerned. For instance, in Busia County, we have a perennial shortage of drugs, which is an essential component of the building blocks of the health system. We are not able to fully fund the drugs and the commodity requirements for our county. And we are grappling with this issue year in, year out. This is the 10th year of devolution, and nobody has ever done a quantification of the needs of the county governments. So we are wondering, were we given a mandate? Was health devolved without due process? Was it premature to devolve? But again, we know we are in the deep end of it. This is a constitutional requirement that health services are devolved, but without the necessary procedures, the necessary codifications, the necessary budget that can go a long way in funding that devolved system. Everybody must be concerned, not only us at the county government, but the citizens. They need to come on board and ask precisely where are we in terms of this devolved health function. Are we meeting our mandate as a county government in terms of fully catering for the people of Busia in terms of their health needs? What are the gaps? Who needs to fill in these gaps? And are we accountable to the extent that Kenyans will say, yes, for sure, we have a county government public health? These are pertinent issues, John, my co-panelists, which we must keep asking and keep a robust debate around. We are so sorry that it looks like budgeting processes in this country are a closed affair. The citizens have no much voice over it. I'm so saddened when we do public participation of our budgets in the county. The process is not well established, not well structured. It is a rushed process, and I think clearly designed not to allow much debate and scrutiny over these issues. Whereas I have a need for my department to be fully catered for, but I lack the voice because I'm a worker to raise my voice over some of these concerns. But I would ask the general public and the civil society to rise up to the occasion, demand and ask whether we are really getting quality service from the county government and from the health department, whether we have all the requirements that they need to run this function. So this is a debate that must begin if it hasn't begun. And this is a debate for all Kenyans, for all county systems, all county governments, and the nation, and even our development partners within and without, to keep asking and keep inquiring and keep checking for all of us, John. I think that would be my fair response to your question.
Thank you very much, Bwana Luvai, and I'm sure I would want to ask you a couple of questions around just the county's own efforts to try and solve some of those bits as you've said. But I want to leave this also to the general plenary. So I want to pass this back to Abraham, because I know people have questions on what they've heard from the three panelists and also from Faith Ann. So Chieng, I pass it back to you just for that final lap. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, for facilitating that session. And I mean, we're seeing a lot more coming out, and even the issues that are specific from the civil society, from the county perspective, just what we've been able to hear, and also from the presentation. So I know we are past the time that we had hoped to finish. We had hoped to stop this at 12, but I wouldn't want to close before just giving an opportunity for a few questions to be asked, just to seek clarity. So if you may, I'd like to welcome just a few questions, and you can raise up your hand, or you can also drop the questions in the chat box. So for those that we may not be able to respond to immediately, we'll be able to respond to at a later time. But yes, I'd like to just open it up for any questions that, okay, so I'm seeing, okay, so I can see two hands already. So we can start with Gitwanja Gashie, who has a question, and then we can go to Michael Nyaguti. And please, you can, just go ahead, unmute and ask your question. Gitwanja, and then we can go to Michael Nyaguti.
Afternoon, all. My question is very straight, and forgive me if I'm naive, but we have been complaining about the growing deficit. Is it possible for us as a country to live within our means? Because I've been hearing proposals that as a country, we need to live within our means. So for example, if we are collecting about 1.5 trillion shillings, is it possible for us as a country to live within the means? And then the other question is with regards to what do we propose as civil society in terms of how we can restructure our debt so that we can either borrow money to pay the expensive loans, and then we pay for expensive loan, and then we remain with more longer term, cheaper loans. So yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Gitwanja, for that. For the questions, I've noted them down. We'll take the next person was it Michael? Okay, and I think we have lost him. So I can see Kamari Mana with your hands up. You can ask.
Thank you, Abraham. My name is Kamari Mana from Turkana. I think I agree with the last speaker that we need to live within our means. But my question is, are there some kind of departments or ministries that the county government can say that we are unable to run them? For example, a good example is the Ministry of Health. We have seen the confusion between who are the nurses or doctors employed by the county government and others are employed by national government. Can we say as county government that we can return this kind of docket or ministry or sector to the national government, since it seems we are failing as county government?
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Maybe I can see Michael Nyaguti's hand is back, and then I can, as we go through this, maybe I'd ask my colleague Rugo after this, maybe you could take the question on the issue around, is it possible to live within our means, and how can we restructure our debt, paying the expensive ones first? So after Nyaguti, I'd like to just call upon Rugo to just and respond to that. Nyaguti, over to you. Just ask the question. Sorry, can we hear him?
No, I think he's speaking, but something is wrong with his sound.
Okay, yeah, because we also can't hear him. Okay, so maybe we can just take the two questions first. Okay. Dr. Rugo, if you're in, could you just share with us? Nyaguti, we couldn't hear you, but now we can hear you. Okay, proceed with your question.
Yeah, so my first question is to the journalists. Is it possible for them to have a team of investigative journalists who would be going around to help us oversight the projects that are actually ongoing? For example, in the constituency, you find that a lot of funds are allocated. With the help of journalists, some of these things could be exposed so that we can also, as we go into the next budget, we can also be able to expose some of this rot. Now, to the county government and represented here by the Busia health person, I would want to ask him, as a county government or as a member of the county government, do they feel concerned that the little that has already been given to them in most of the past budget is not being properly used, to an extent that the community still don't get services that they are supposed to get? For example, in most health facilities, you will only come across things like Panadol, and yet it's a lot of budget for the real things that are not given to the people at that level. Before we start calling for more funds from, from the headquarters. This is a concern to the citizenry, and probably he could give us an insight as to why they are not properly performing to justify for more funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we can just take those questions first. Maybe we can start with the questions that Nyaguti has asked the journalist. What in terms of to Mr. Luvai, the utilization of the funds that are already given to us, to the counties. What response do you have in regard to that?
Thank you, Abraham. Once again, my name is Emmanuel in Busia County. I would say we've tried and endeavored to fully utilize the resources we are given as a department. But again, there are interesting scenarios here. Sometimes budget absorption is hampered by many factors. For instance, delays in procurement, particularly of equipment that cannot really be readily procured at the county level, and you have to ask for external assistance, or seek an external vendor, and that one takes time. At the end of the day, probably that process is not fully exhausted, and you end up with unspent resources, and that is not a very good indicator. And then there are also delays in exchequer disbursements to county governments. For instance, this is June, the last month of the end of the financial year. Now, I'm just from another meeting where we are told there's so much resources coming in from the National Ministry of Health to Busia County, and we must burn this money before the 30th of June, 2021. So we are late, and everybody is pressurizing us to spend in the next 10 days and account for this money. So our simple question has been, where has this money been? And what is the hurry?
I think we must have lost him.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah, please proceed.
Yes, why is the pressure to spend money at the last minute towards the tail end of the financial year? This is what constitutes wastage in our country. Run their mandates and also ask and leave others also run their mandates. If the Ministry of Health has money, which it thinks it wants to spend with the counties, why wait until the last 1 week of the financial year and release such huge amounts of monies to counties? You know, this is where theft and misappropriation and poor resource utilization occurs. So I think all of us and those people interested in budgeting in this country, all the stakeholders, civil society, and ordinary citizens must rise up to ask, where are these inefficiencies occurring in our financial management systems? Are we not having the Public Finance Management Act in this country that is supposed to ensure prudent fiscal management of our resources? Why should we allow malpractices in this open system we are learning, where we have all the information available at a click of a button? I think some of these things are very deliberate. So we still have a long way to go in ensuring prudent resource utilization, efficiency, and transparency when it comes to resource use, particularly in the health sector. There's so much wasted, glaring wastage, duplication, because we are aware we have so many development partners with an interest in health, particularly in malaria and HIV and TB programs. And even with the COVID resources, I mean, the COVID pandemic, we have so many partners on board. We have so many resources coming in from different quarters, including loans. But this money has never quite well been utilized because of the design and interests of people. They just deliberately want these things to delay and probably not really work the way they are supposed to be because of our own desires and schemes. I would politely ask that Kenyans rise and interrogate government and take government to account over the resources that trickle in the health sector. We'll be able to minimize wastage, and we'll be able to spend the little resources that are there prudently and to the benefit of Kenyans. I've already told you that county government of Busia has a deficit of over 3 billion shillings for the health sector. But if we plugged the holes in and around our budget processes, maybe we could save a fraction of these resources going elsewhere and maybe make them available to run the Department of Health and Sanitation. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, and for the response. Then I think we'll go back to Gitwanya Gashia's question that was on debt. So is Rugo, are you in, Dr. Rugo? John, would you take up the question?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so I think you got the question,
yeah.
right? Okay,
yes, happy to take that. Living within our means, I think is a good way to think of how we get budgets that are more that can be handled better by our own financing system, which means what we collect, then that is what we are actually planning to spend. But we have to be, but to answer to Getwanja's question, we have to start with where are we at this point? Where we are at this point is that we are in a very tight fix because of our borrowing habits. We are in a very tight fix because of our appetite to spend and always have a budget that is pensionary in nature. So every year there's almost an expectation that the budget must grow. And every year there's an expectation that the government can borrow. And remember that when Kenya became a lower middle income country, what that did is that it opened more avenues for the government to be able to borrow commercially. So in answering that question, I will start with where are we at this point? Where we are at this point is that we're in a scenario where we have a bigger expenditure problem than a revenue problem. The expenditure problem is that we have we seem to have a budgeting system that is always anticipating that the budget will grow and expand. And what that means is that it then puts a lot of pressure on we need to find money from somewhere. That somewhere is getting very tight on the tax side, but is still quite open on the borrowing side. But debt is not an animal that creates itself. Debt and the funding gap that we have is especially because of the size of the deficit that you have and fund. So what Parliament can do, because Parliament has the final say on this, let's be very clear. The executive proposes a budget. The guys who approve the budget are in Parliament. And that's why I get shocked sometimes when we find ourselves on social media complaining with the members of Parliament as well. On the deficit, which ultimately then puts a cap on how much the government can borrow. And if you do that over time, then you start getting to a level where your budget is a bit more manageable and you're closer to living within your means. So manage our deficit and make sure that Parliament is playing its role. I will say are two things in answering that question that needs to happen. So if you meet a member of Parliament complaining like you about public debt, please remind them that the Public Finance Management Act and Parliament gives them power to actually do something about it. Debt restructuring is an interesting conversation and one that countries like Kenya have to pursue. When you look at what Faith Ann presented, when you are going to spend 66 shillings out of every 100 that you collect in debt repayment, you have a big problem. The threshold for debt repayment is actually 30% for a country like Kenya. So at 66, we are double what the threshold should be. In terms of sustainability, that is not a good place to be. So restructuring is a conversation that can happen. But it's a tricky one for Kenya in a couple of ways. Number one is that Kenya has gotten into the commercial debt market. And the commercial debt market is not very polite, like the multilaterals that you can borrow from. If you listen to the conversation by the cabinet secretary for the National Treasury sometime last year, what he said is that some of the debt that we've taken up with the Eurobond, for example, is that if we go asking for deferment or restructuring of the debt, it's almost like we are saying that we are struggling to pay and we might default. And so the guys who we owe money from the Eurobond market can come for their money straight away. So when you listen to some of the terms, like those that are in the debt that we've taken, it makes you a little worried on just how much of our debt we are able to negotiate for new terms, similar to what Gitwanja said, longer term, lower interest debt. Not all our debts to be open to that. And I think that's a challenge that is going to be there. But I think asking, and again, this is a question that Parliament can push, is asking the National Treasury to think of ways to restructure our debt with the players and people we owe that are open to that conversation, I think is one way to manage our current debt repayment bill. Thanks, Ochieng.
Thank you, John, for taking the questions. I can see we have, there was a question to Victor around the investigative journalism. What do you have to say about that, Victor Mandala, around for the journalist responsibility? Yeah.
Thank you. And I appreciate that question because we have been sitting as journalists and more often we come up with some stories trying to reveal what is really hidden from Wananchi through investigative pieces. We've we've revealed most of the Kemsa story, several other investigative pieces. But the problem has been that after that good story has been aired, what next? And we find ourselves being like reporters, reporting daily. Today, this has been stolen from Turkana County. This amount has been stolen from Vihiga County. This has been stolen from Kemsa. And it ends there. So we are a bit frustrated because we keep on complaining. It's like we are complaining. Is the story ends when the paper ends when the paper is the day's paper is done. So our frustration has been that we are coming up with these investigative pieces. We are revealing some of these corrupt scandals happening around. But what next? So, and it is in this such forum where we have civil society, I think we should have more of this. When we come up with a story, and I think we can work together, when we come up with an investigative piece revealing amount of money stolen somewhere, I think we should now keep the government on toes daily, reminding them that this happened and no action has been taken. So if we collaborate with the civil society group, our stories will now start making sense, because right now they're not. We are merely complaining, just a mere reportage that this has been stolen, but there is no action taken. So if we persistently come up with these stories and the civil society group and other stakeholders help us in pushing it, many journalists are really willing, and media houses are now really proactive. They are really cooperating with journalists, because I remember some time back, you could come with a story touching on a certain ministry, certain amount has been stolen, but the story can die. But right now, the new generation of editors we have in newsrooms are really for Mwananchi, are really for Wanjiku, and they are really tired about these corrupt issues. So with the help and collaboration with the civil society group, I think we can push the government, or rather those who are mandated to take action, to really do their duty.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you for your comprehensive answer. And yes, we've been seeing a lot of RT newspaper articles coming out, and the increasing attention that is going really towards specific issues that are appealing beyond just reporting on bigger things, but details also being coming out very clearly. So, colleagues, this has been a very intense process and a very engaging and interactive session where we've had a lot of issues coming out. And I know we had said that we would want to stop at exactly at 12 p.m. We have gone beyond by 30 minutes, but I also just want to thank you so much for still holding on to the end of this conversation. I know we have so many other questions that we may need to ask. Kindly just drop them in the chat box, and we will, as we share more details, the presentation and some of the question and answer sessions that were reported here, we'll be happy to respond to those particular questions. So without further ado, I'd just like to really thank you all for just taking your time responding to the questions, to our invitation, for just engaging in the process. A lot has come out. We learn every day, new things coming up, and I believe whatever the discussion will just continue to enhance our engagement, particularly in the budget process. This is not the last of the meetings that we are having. We will have more opportunities for us to engage on budget issues. But for this, I'd like to just thank you, and not to forget some of our colleagues who've really been helpful. So we have Florida Beroya, who's been one of our sign language interpreters, and as well as Faith Cheptile, who have really ensured that even for those who cannot hear, who have a hearing impairment, have been able to follow through the process. And we really, really thank you for engaging us on this. So at this point, I'd like us to, I know it's if we were in a hotel somewhere, I mean, one of our colleagues would say that we would have gone and posed outside there for a group photo, but because now we are learning how to adapt and moving this, so I'd like to ask all of us to just switch on our videos, and also so that we can just see and take a screenshots. I know that's the photo of how we operate nowadays. So please, you can just turn on your videos, everyone, and then I'll ask John to help. John, you'll help us with your skills of taking photos, these virtual photos. So I'll just request you to switch on your videos. Haya, John, uko tayari?
Okay, let me turning the camera on. Okay, so if everybody can smile. And we have 5 slides, so you have to smile for a very long time. Eh? So if you've not been happy today, this is the right time to be happy. So I've taken slide number 1. We have 3 more to go. 4 more to go. So just hang in there. Okay, then we go to the second one. Keep smiling because you don't know which slide you are in. Okay, the second one is taken. Keep smiling. Okay, we are almost done. Yeah, only Mali knows how to do this. I think she's done this many times before. If you can see Mani Ngusale somewhere, you know how to keep smiling. You have to find a way to. Okay. Then we are to the last one now. Sorry, you have to stop spotlighting because when you spotlight, it only brings one picture. Sorry. We are to the last one, and the last one, people have not switched on their cameras, but in respect to everyone, I'll still take that one as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. For the photos you shall receive once the negatives have been developed. So thank you very much. Yeah. So just to thank you all for holding on to the end of the conversation, and we wish you all a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lunch time.